Great to be here, everybody. Welcome to GST Presents Top Global Startups, where I bring you the founders, builders, and visionaries redefining the future of business and technology. Today's conversation sits right at the intersection of one of the biggest shifts we're seeing in the enterprise, the rise of agentic AI. Not just the tools, not just co pilots, but systems that can act, decide, and execute like digital colleagues. Joining me today is Khashayar Mansourizadeh, who's a co-founder and CEO of Starnus, with a master's from Politecnico di Milano, an Italian university, and a doctorate from Eindhoven University of Technology, focused on data engineering system. He has a deep technical foundation. He's bringing us autonomous robotics, designing modular architecture, and is now applying that thinking to a new frontier, multi-agent AI systems for business execution. At Starnus, he's building what could become a new category, AI colleagues for founders and small teams capable of running sales, marketing, and operation in ways that were previously impossible. So today we're diving into a critical question. If AI can execute, why do humans still own the strategy? So with that, I'd like to bring him on board. Hello, how are you today?
Hey, thanks, great. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on the show.
It's funny because I just had my book that I wrote. I don't know if
Yeah,
you can see it, but
yeah, yeah, I can see it now. Nice.
it's my book on digital employees, actually. So that I wrote, I don't know, about a year ago. But it's going to change everything. Uh, so everyone is talking about AI co-pilots, but you're building something entirely different. Agentic AI colleagues. What fundamental changes when AI moves from, or fundamentally changes when AI moves from assisting to actually acting?
Yeah, it's one of the deepest questions in the field because we started with AI assisting people to do the work, and now exactly we're moving towards the systems that they are more proactive instead of being just reactive to what you input to them, and they try to output with predicting basically the next token. Now they are becoming more proactive in the sense that they have their own persistent memory system, objectives, goals, and they can stay on those objectives and goals for a long time. So I think the key difference there is, as I just said, two things: memory and having objectives and a sense of what is the thing that I want to achieve, and being able to stay on that consistently for a very long time. It could be days, it could be weeks, it could be even months. That's what separates it from just reactive short-term systems, in my opinion. That's big shift that we will going to see.
So, how did that experience shape how you think about multi-agent AI systems? So, you look at it. You start autonomous robotics where systems operate in certain real-world environments. So, how did your that experience shape how you think about these multi-agent AI systems in business?
Yeah. So in robotics, since you are touching the physical world, and normally you are inside is relatively sensitive business environment, it could be a warehouse, a factory, or something else. You have to comply with a lot of regulations. You have to be very rigid in that sense, and you are not very open to make choices. But once you are going, and that's intentional, you cannot let that robot just wander around on a factory and go around and hit maybe a production line. There shouldn't be a stop for a second. But in software solutions now we have more freedom. They have the language as the base. It's by nature it's more probabilistic. So you have the freedom there, and that freedom is helping us to let these agents and systems move along and be more creative of themselves, of okay, what can I do or how can I achieve things. Still, we are putting this relative same concept of guardrails around them because we don't trust them fully yet. But we are evolving the systems in a way. You will even see this in LLMs. Maybe it's not a but you see that the recent models of Claude, for example, are more courageous to take more incentive and actions of themselves. And we take that also into the system. So as I said, we move gradually to that proactive approach.
We hear team terms like co-pilots, assistants, and agents.
Yeah.
What makes an AI a colleague rather than just a tool?
Yeah. That's a good way of, let's say, tackling this, in the sense that if you wanted the AI to become your colleague, you need to see how humans are operating, and we call them colleagues. So let's say a tool is something that you are responsible in operating. That it's quite rigid. It's not that adaptive to the case. So first thing is that the system, if you want to call something AI colleague, it should be adaptive, and especially for the cases that are out of the scope of the initial thinking you had as the engineer for that system. So even if you ask system to do something that is out of the scope, it should be able to handle that gracefully, not to break or say, or just to stop operating just typical tool. And going back to the old point is that you need to make sure that it's consistent in, so you don't want it to be like your typical chat gpt, that each time with a new chat you go there and it's just maybe relatively fresh start and you have to explain a lot of things, or really discrete separations between things. So you need that system to be quite coherent in the entire experience and build the knowledge as you go further. You don't want, today is the first day I have my AI colleague and I tell it about my business. I don't want to repeat the same thing after a week or a month or so.
You're the architect behind Starnus's multi-agent system. How do the agents coordinate, specialize, and avoid chaos when working together in complex business tasks?
Yeah, the architecture, so you can have different architectures. You can have really peer-to-peer sort of agent collaboration, decentralized. Agents can invoke other agents and so on. The architecture we chose was more hierarchical, in the sense that you have a leader, a supervisor, and that supervisor is deciding which sub-agent or tool should be called in which order and how. So that's, let's say, the mastermind behind the execution plan each time. And then it orchestrates how the others should cooperate with each other. Um, yeah, and then we built the engine such that the context and the collaboration, especially the context flow, is happening properly. Because let's say you run 10 agents simultaneously in parallel, it's async. They output what they're doing, and then you have to gather it and pass it to the next batch and so on, so everything becomes consistent. That's the approach we took, a hierarchical batch based execution.
There's a tension between autonomy and trust. How do you design systems that can act independently without introducing unaccessible risk to the business?
Yeah. First is that the system is built to with those guardrails, and it's built in a way that if it's doing very sensitive actions, for example, sending messages or emails to clients or to prospects or so on, in the context of sales and marketing. So this normally, at least for the first few times, should be checked with the human, a human in the loop, let's say. And those are the guardrails that are necessary and can gradually build the trust, because the human, and that helps the human and the machine or AI to get along and sync each other's expectations. So the human can correct the system and the system knows what the human operator is expecting. And at a certain point you can let the system to go on and do this, because you have this consistent memory in place that is learning over time, and it has the objectives and it's accumulating the knowledge. So after a few times, exactly how you train a person in your team, you can train gradually this AI system and trust it over time.
So, when you've gone down through and built these systems and you're focusing on sales and marketing, right, as your first use case,
Yeah.
why are those functions ideal entry point for agentic AI, and what are you already seeing in terms of performance versus humans?
Yeah, I think let's say the first um, point or vertical that was very good was language, chat, and then after that, the first, which was most related, which was programming to language and chat. We chose marketing and sales because after normal chat and coding, that's the first aspect of the business that you hit with AI because first it's closer to language, and second, it's also businesses are more looking for solutions that can boost their revenue first, and then they will look into what can help me to cut the costs. And then there are verticals that are very good, like finance, like accounting, that you can enter. But we chose not to enter into those first because they need regulations, a lot of guardrails, a lot of compliances. That's a tough business case to go after as the first use case.
So, if AI can execute end to end workflows, where exactly do most humans still create value?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you saw this, but VC and some other VCs also in Silicon Valley and SF area are now pushing to what they call AI native agencies or AI native services. So this is as a reaction of the market and the capabilities of the system, and that's because you we are seeing that when we honestly we a lot of people promise that AI can do the work for you if even if you have zero knowledge of that vertical. It could be coding, let's say vibe coding or vibe selling or vibe marketing or what they want to call it. Unfortunately, that model is not there yet because most of these systems are still coming from the reactive nature, means that the human is the behind the steering wheel. And if the person doesn't know where they want to head towards there, then they can also cause chaos inside the system itself. So that's where even if it's 2%, even if it's 5% of the work, you still need that human expert, that human mind to be on top, so that especially during the onboarding phase, that human expert can onboard the system into that business context and give it correct context. As an example, let's say I have zero knowledge about marketing sales. I want to use a Starnus and I don't know what's outbound. I don't know what's inbound, what are techniques, nothing. Then I just create chaos into the system because still I have to give context. I have to define my ideal customer profile. I have to provide context into the system and so on. While if an expert comes in my place, he or she knows exactly what should be done, what are the steps, how to define the business so the system can understand and so on. So those are places still that are important for humans to be there.
So, Cassio, do you believe what strategy remains a human domain long term? Are we underestimating how far agentic systems could evolve?
I think this human touch will be there for the maybe 1 to 3 years. Some say that it might be 5 years, let's say on average 1 to 3 years. But I think after that point, we are with systems that are quite proactive and they have absorbed enough knowledge from the business context in general. Maybe we will even see now the models are trained on massive data about coding and GitHub and so on. But maybe we will see models that gradually have built-in knowledge about more business context in general, and also the systems we built around them can help them, so that over time, maybe 1 to 3 years, we have systems that you can just let the AI go. You know that it's best executor, best planner. You even it can come and dive into all the business context you have, and it knows how to pull out the stuff, what to discard, and so on. But I think that few years time is needed. to have those systems in place.
If a startup can run core functions with AI colleagues, what do you think? What is a company of the future going to look like in terms of team, speed, and capital efficiency? How's it going to change?
Yeah. Um, I think at the end, a big portion of the economy at least will be selling to humans still. So that human touch will gradually propagate backwards into the selling pipeline, let's say. Um, but at some point, definitely it will stop. So we will see at some point that no human touch is needed anymore. And from that moment backwards, everything is machine operated, AI operated, or robot operated, or whatever. I don't know where that, let's say, boundary borderline will reside. It might be quite further to the consumer side. It could be quite backwards to the production side. But it will be there, definitely. There will be a borderline that at that point the human touch will be cut. And from that backwards, everything will be mostly 98%, 99% machine operated.
What do you think are the hardest unsolved problems right now in the agentic systems? Is it coordination, memory, reasoning? A lot of people talk about hallucinations, or is it something that I'm not that we need to look at?
Yeah, I think first, context is a big problem still because I, as a person, I have lived 32 years. And in these 32 years, there are many years that I've built context into my brain, and that is just not there. I mean, Claude, even the best models don't have that context of human relationship. All these that you cannot explain, but you somehow know it, and you know if it's wrong or right. Those are the important touches that the models don't have yet. And I that's a big problem because how you want to take those really discrete, individualized experiences ingested into the models. That's one thing. And second is the nature that the models right now were a lot built on the reactive model that you actually tell something and the whole tech stack was predict the next token, and that was entirely was reaction to what exists as input. We have to move to models that are by nature proactive, and also the so that's the second. And the third is the economy of this economies of a scale, because if I want to put a system, I as a person, okay, I'm reacting to constant inputs that are coming to my sensory inputs and ingested to my brain. But that's just because I'm very cheap to operate. My brain is very cheap to operate. We cannot have models right now that 24/7 you keep inputting them and they are processing tokens. Your bills will go to millions. We have to figure out that problem, how to solve that. So these three, I think, are the most important bottlenecks.
There's a lot of noise in AI right now. What are most people getting wrong about agentic AI?
Yeah, I think a lot of so one of at least one of the big problems I see with especially non-techie users that come to these solutions, like Starnus or others, is that they think AI will is some kind of a magic that will solve any problem suddenly, and that's because of the very very great marketing effort that is being put into this entire motion. So, for example, a client with its very early stage of startup comes to use the Starness, their product, their service, their ideal customer profile definition. A lot of things are falling apart. And even if you hire not just an AI, but the best GTM expert in the world, and just ask it to do outbound or inbound for you, they cannot do anything magical for you because your core fundamental product and value proposition has a problem, has a flaw. So these are very big big misunderstandings about AI, that it can sort of magically wipe out all your problems in a single day. That's not going to happen. You need to fix the fundamentals, and then AI is a good accelerator on top of that.
You know, so let's look at it. There's a, as I said, there's a lot of noise out there, but let's talk about 3 to 5 years from now. What's it going to look like? How different is it going to be than it is today? Let's say 5 years. What do you think?
Yeah, 5 years. I think, at least maybe I'm optimistic, but I think there, at in 5 years we are at the point that we have a lot of these proactive systems, systems that are quite confident that they can be the manager and the executor, and probably we are seeing those formations of fully lights out operations, let's say fully machine operated pipelines in some sectors. Maybe even if it will be manufacturing, for instance, the more physical world than more white collar jobs. I'm not sure. Maybe it will be white collar jobs. Maybe we will see, I don't know, accounting firms that are fully machine operated. But we will see in 5 years businesses that are really lights out, machine operated. Maybe just a human walks there each day or each week to be sure that their business and operations are going fine, and majority of the things are just happening with machines and AI, high frequency, let's say, operations going there.
We're coming up to the top of the show. If you want to stay on for a few minutes after the show's over, I'm happy to talk to you. But my final question is, if every founder had a team of AI colleagues tomorrow, what becomes a true differentiator between companies?
I think that one of those three bottlenecks that I mentioned, the context, that won't suddenly happen at the master, let's say at the main provider level. I think it's impossible to get all these personalized context suddenly into a generic model that is even built to serve generic purpose applications. So all these companies will find, there will be companies that are designed around how to ingest this context fast and efficient into the models, and those will be the differentiators, one of the at least big differentiators. So if you are, let's say, an ex Google sales expert with 30 years of experience that are hiring these for sales, will not be equal to maybe an 18-year-old that has no knowledge of sales and just enters and hires the same amount of AI effort into the team.
So closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you, Khashayar?
Um, of course, linked socials, LinkedIn is great, and if they come to starnus.com, they see also we have a link. They can book a call directly with me, 15-minute. So yeah, happy to have a chat with anybody that is interested.
Uh, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And
Thank you.
I'd like to thank all of you for joining one more time. GST Presents Top Global Startups. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm your host. We are a family office. We are a PR group. We also do frontier tech and AI. So we believe that we take an integrated approach, and people just like Cassiar are changing the world. So thanks to all of you. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I'll be back again soon with another exciting edition of GST Presents Top Global Startups. And I'm Gary Fowler, your host. Thank you, everybody, and thank Yashiar.
Thank you. Thanks.